Math Coordinator here at the Virginia Department of Education. Pleased to have with me tonight Kristen Williams-Foss. She's our Special Education and Mathematics Specialist at the department, and Deb Delosier, who works primarily with elementary education. And then tonight from our George Mason partnership, we have Dr. Teresa Wills and Dr. Jennifer Suh. We are so excited to share more about the work that we're doing around bridging for math strength. We're excited to have you all here tonight to take some time out of your evening to learn more about these great resources. So as you're entering the room, if you have not done so yet, please put your grade level in front of your name so that we can know what your preference might be as we break out into breakout rooms later into the session. So I'll turn it over to our friends at George Mason to kind of take over the show here for us. I think, Jen, are you going to start?
Yeah, I will. Thank you so much, Tina. Welcome, everyone. It's so wonderful to have you all. And we see some familiar names out there. So it's great to see you all. You can change your name and add your grade by clicking on more next to your name. We'd also love to hear from you all and tell us where you're from. We have some folks, Prince William nearby, and some of the familiar folks we get to work with, as well as some folks in Petersburg. I had a project with some Petersburg schools a long time ago. We have some local Loudoun County, Greensville, Bedford, Danville, pretty far out. It's so wonderful to see all of you from across Virginia. This is a special project to our heart, sponsored by Virginia Department of Education. We're just so glad that they asked us to work with them on this exciting project. So how many of you guys were here when we launched this? We had a launch session. If you could just raise your hand using the tool, it'd be great to see if we have some returners. If you're new, we welcome you. We're so excited that you're here. And, you know, we've seen a lot of folks actually sharing some of this work with their teachers. And we're just excited that you all can be ambassadors for us as we build up and refine some of the tools that we have here for us. So let me just kind of share a little bit about the background, just because I think it helps you see where this project has been and where we're headed. Tonight, we're going to actually do a quick intro. I'll give you a little overview of the Bridging Math Strength website and project. Then we're going to give you guys an opportunity for a deep dive, exploring the modules and really using it to kind of think about your instructional planning cycle. And that will help you as a classroom teacher, as well as a math coach or a district leader. So we're hoping that you'll take some practical know-hows back to your district. And then we'll have a chance to summarize and share some news. So please change your Zoom name again. You haven't done so, and I'll just go ahead and kind of give you the context. As you know, we were hoping that we were in the post-pandemic era by fall, but we're still kind of in the midst of it. But we know that a lot of our national organizations have really refocused and kind of, really advocated this notion of making sure that we keep our eye on the prize and keeping the joy and humanity in teaching and learning mathematics. And all of you as grade 3-8 teachers really have that joy and love for math. And so we welcome you. The focus of our project was really the second bullet here, the focus on and teaching to student strength. And so that's where the name really came from, right? Bridging for math strengths. And we know this is so important because we know that a lot of students, develop their math identity in these very formative years. And so as a teacher, we have so much influence in how they see themselves as mathematicians. We also know that there's great literature on asset-based instruction, and in a time where a lot of news is really forecasting a lot of gloom, news about learning loss, we really kind of challenge you to reject the notion of learning loss and kind of turn your attention and frame it by looking at student strength and thinking about how we're going to build on it. So we really appreciated Beth Farber's book. It's focused on students' math strengths. And what they did was they really kind of try to broaden the notion of what we mean by math competence. And so they kind of think about math competence and math strengths in three different ways. This notion of dispositional strength, This idea that students actually persevere through problem solving and take risk and collaborate. And those are the students that, we love having in our math class. Kids who have these process standards and practices, so they're able to communicate, explain their thinking, be able to justify, maybe really facile at using manipulatives to represent their thinking, as well as, of course, content knowledge, which is so critically important. So we appreciated their notion. And so this is just kind of a screenshot from one of their, in their chapter, they talk about this idea of broadening the notion of math competence. And so that really helped us kind of think about how we're going to build on students' strength. And we know that students have these different types of strength that really do support them as they really build up their math identity, especially in the middle grades. Beth Corbett and Karen Karp have this wonderful strength-based cycle where, you start with assessing students through formative assessment and then really identify the strength and build on by having these kind of interventions or what we call bridging math activities, and then celebrating their thinking. So we want you to kind of have a deep dive tonight in these modules that we've developed. I want to mention that our project really is co-designed with teachers. It's for teachers by teachers. And so having you here tonight is so very important, because not only are you able to try it out, but we're hoping that you'll be able to share it and also give us some feedback as we continue to build on our own project. So to provide you a little deep dive into the project, we thought it would be really helpful for you to kind of have a brief tour, a tour of the website. So let me indulge you in just kind of looking at the website. And sorry if my internet's a little slow for some reason. Maybe it's just a time of day. And the computerstrength.org, that is our website. The VDOE Department of Education and George Mason decided to host all of the modules on this website. And this idea of using formative assessment to find the edges of students' learning is really where we start, and we want to make sure that the bridging activities help you take up the possibility for growth. So this
Can I turn the TV down?
That's kind of the premise of our work. So if you go and learn a little bit more about the bridging for math strength, you'll find that we actually have a section on professional learning where we're actually going to post a lot of the webinars, but also we provide you with the context around why we chose learning progressions and trajectories as kind of the centerpiece of our work. And this is not an unfamiliar term for you. A lot of our curriculum frameworks, kind of trajectories, is something that's really appealing to us, especially when we're strength-based, because it allows you to kind of think about learning in a continuum, not that someone is below grade level or kind of behind or 2 grades, because that's the language that might really kind of turn folks in, kind of towards that deficit language. We really want to actually kind of focus on the asset-based instruction, and learning trajectory really allows us to do that, because we think about how research kind of defines how students develop conceptual understanding. And it's not a linear path, as you know. One of the researchers who's really renowned in doing learning trajectory work described the learning trajectory as rock climbing walls, right? Where you have rocks and it's not linear, but you're kind of going up. And sometimes you're reaching from different kinds of horizontal knowledge, like related concepts. And that helps you build a very strong, interconnected knowledge around that concept. So likewise, we're trying to kind of map out what is that learning progression? What is that learning trajectory? And how do we build from the strength and move to the targeted standard using some bridging concepts? Over the summer, our teacher designers, and if you're here, please do change your name to teacher designer so we can recognize you. But our teacher designers took some time to explore and curate some really great resources, one of which you'll see as rich tasks, routines, and games. And so you'll see under this about rich task, routines, and games, as well as family connections. So you can click there and you'll see that there is actually a whole slew of wonderful routines that you might already be familiar with. But it's wonderful to have one website that has everything kind of in one spot. And we're continuing to build, and we don't say this is an exhaustive list, but it's one of those great places to start if you're working on routines to really promote that math discussion in your classroom and getting students that equitable participation, getting them kind of warmed up for the math that you're ready to teach them. But let's go ahead and kind of go into maybe a grade level, and that will give you kind of a preview to what you'll be doing today. And so every page looks very similar. And one thing that you'll see is that all of the bridging standards that's identified by VDOE are on the top menu, and the ones that are green are live. And it's exciting to tell you that we're going to have a lot of these other standards turn green within the next 2 weeks or so. And so what we're doing is the teacher designers design these modules, and now we're vetting them and uploading them. And so let me just give you a kind of a preview by looking at 3.4a, this idea of representing multiplication division through 10 times 10. Using a variety of approaches. So if you pull down, you'll find that we do map out that learning trajectory. We don't give you a thesis, but we do give you kind of a just-in-time PD so that you as a teacher leader, or if you're a team lead or a coach, you can kind of say, hey, these are some of those big ideas that we really need to focus on. And these are some important look-fors when we're actually teaching this concept. And by the way, there are some purposeful questions that we should have handy. Some of these questions might be the kinds of questions that make math visible. Some of these questions might be the ones that are really trying to probe students' understanding and asking them to justify. We just have a few, and we know that you'll be inspired to generate a few more through these. But let's say you want to go and look at some of the other resources. Well, if you want a full module, you'll always find this full module with instructional tips and resources. We didn't want to clutter like the kind of tools that allow you to kind of focus on the bridging activity. So we do have these full modules. But one of the things that I want to make sure that you notice is that we do have this bridging for math strength, a 3-column kind of trajectory, we'll call it for now, where we actually identify some of the students' strength that students might come with in this grade band, right? And we know the targeted standard. But the teacher designers really spent the whole summer thinking about, so what are those bridging concepts? If our students are going to be very strong in this particular targeted standards, what are some of those bridging concepts that they need to master to feel success? And we built these routines, rich tasks, and games to support this middle column. Knowing that VDOE already has a whole wealth of resources that target 3.4a, right? We have the math instructional plans. We have the rich tasks that have been developed and expanded. So we know that there's some wonderful tools, but what do we do when we're wanting to bridge those concepts? And so you'll find that we're also having these just-in-time quick checks be front and center in this work, right? That's where we start. We really want to kind of see where are our kids and what strengths do they have, and what are the next instructional sequence that we want to provide. And you'll notice that the routines, rich tasks, and games are just for that. So for example, I won't, spend too much time because today is a time for you to explore, but this notion of equal groups and showing, equal groups in different ways. And this idea of, 3 times 6 is the same thing as 6 times 3. It's very visual in the same and different kind of rich routines that we have. So this just kind of gives you a preview. Again, I'm going to click on this just so that you can see. Let's say you just want a one-stop shop and you just want everything. Well, here's where everything is. We have everything with the learning trajectory, the just-in-time. Quick checks are right above here. You have the bridging activities that are all linked, as well as the other resources that VDOE has created over many years, right? So those are vocabulary cards that really provide access to academic language, and some other wonderful resources. So that gives you kind of hopefully a quick tour, but it gives you kind of the structure, because that structure is consistent for every grade. All right, so let me go back to the slide deck. And, we're really kind of imagining folks using this module or this website to really kind of strengthen their instructional planning cycle, whether you're using it as a teacher yourself, or maybe you're coaching and you want to use this for coaching cycle. So we have kind of, outlined perhaps how you might use this idea of really understanding the learning trajectory really helps you kind of see where the strengths are and where you're moving next. And that would kind of be helpful to kind of have some formative assessment from the quick checks to see, okay, what are the strengths that my students have, and what are the next steps and what questions might I ask? That leads to looking at, obviously, the modules. The modules are designed just to support those bridging concepts. So in the case of 3.4a, you saw some of these examples. So let's just kind of hear kind of a narration of how this might look, just so that you kind of get a feel for it. Hopefully the sound works, and so I'm going to play this.
Let's take a look at this third grade standard. Because we're focusing on strengths, we know that our students can skip count by 2s, 5s, and 10s, and that they can determine sums and differences. We also know our bridging concepts that are going to be essential so that students can be successful on their SOL for that grade level, in this case, which is multiplying and dividing through 10 times 10. In each module, you'll find big ideas. The important ones of this grade level is knowing that there's multiple models for showing multiplication, and that there's a relationship between multiplication and division. There's also a vertical articulation section, which lets you know how this standard progresses from first grade to second grade, in third grade, and then up to fourth grade. Let's take a look at two different students. Here we have student A. And if you look at their work, they do know their multiplication facts, and they do know how to draw pictures. However, the picture doesn't really show a multiplication model. What's next? This student should look at more ways to see different multiplication models. Here we have student B. They're able to show multiplication models in terms of equal groups. But what's next? That they can find out more different types of models, such as arrays and number lines. In each module, you'll get a routine. These routines sometimes will benefit your whole class and sometimes should be specific to student A or student B based on their results from the formative assessment. Here in this case, number talk arrays would work for both students because they both need to see different models of multiplication. Also, the same but different math is a routine that would be great for student A and B because it showcases the commonalities between multiplication and division. There are two tasks in this module. The first task is all about looking at arrays. This would benefit both students. And the second task looks at equal groups and the relationship between multiplication and division. Now, student B was really showing strong evidence of making equal groups, but we didn't quite see the relationship between multiplication and division. So for student B, we'll be focusing on that area, whereas student A will be focusing on everything. We also have a game. In this case, the game is all about arrays. This would be great for both student A and student B because we saw that they still had those strengths in multiplication, but our bridging concept was this idea of arrays.
All right, I hope that kind of gives you kind of a good overview of how this might be
Let's take a look at this third grade standard.
I have Teresa on like looped, right? All right, so I'm gonna take the opportunity to kind of hand it over to Teresa. Teresa, if you wanna, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to the slide deck and advance the slides so that you can kind of tell us where we're going next.
Great, thank you. Again, so in the chat, you've seen me spam your chat a lot. There are the links to the slide decks. That's very important because you're going to participate a lot in this next section. The things that you're going to do in the next section, Jen, if you can go to the next slide, is you're going to start off by analyzing two pieces of student work. And you have a slide here where you are giving feedback on student strengths. Student A, student B, what are their strengths? Then we'll come back together after that. And so make sure that you click on your grade level. You can always flip to another grade level if needed. All those links are available in the slide deck. And I'm going to start your breakout rooms now. Again, in your slide decks, slide 8 and 9 are your 2 pieces of student work to review and find those student strengths. Back everyone to the main room. We're all back together now in the main room. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the main room. All right, folks. So you had a chance to look at 2 pieces of student work and describe their strengths. And so one thing you probably noticed is that the strengths from one student to the other might not be the same. In many cases, they weren't, but you were able to list those strengths there. We're going to dig deeper. What you'll notice, you can slide that little yellow box over on all of your slides. I can just slide it off to the side there. And there are 2 more steps. So now that we know what Ava and Blake can do, we know their strengths, what's next? And so you'll fill out some of the what's next. And then finally, the beauty of the activities that we have is every single standard has a task, a routine, and a game. So once you know what the students know, once you know what is next on their needs, you're going to look at those activities and decide, does Ava get that activity? Does Blake get that activity? Do both get it? And more. And that's where you put it in the individualized section. So again, we're going to keep using our same slide deck. I'll post that in the chat here again. Same slide decks, just scooch your little yellow box over to the side. You'll be able to see the next steps there and really see how that task, routine, and game can be individualized based on those student strengths. Alrighty, our rooms are open again. Go back, find your buddies, say hi again, and let's start to individualize Ava and Blake. Welcome back to the main room. Hello there and welcome back. All right, folks, some of the important things that we saw that showed evidence that you all were taking in some of the important aspects here is being able to identify student strengths based on the student work, thinking about what's next, and then developing those individualized activities. Again, we give you a task, routine, and game, but it's not a one-size-fits-all model. These are bridging concepts and activities to support those concepts. And so it was exciting to see on your slides how your individualized activities were a little bit different for both Ava and Blake. There is a question that I have to summarize all of this, and it's down on slide 21 of all your slides, but also on my screen. And we're going to participate in a chat waterfall, which means everyone types in the chat box, but we don't hit enter yet. We all hit enter at the same time to ensure some more equitable think time. So find your chat box and respond to this. How do the routines, rich task, and games bridge students' understanding? How do the routines, rich task, and games bridge students' understanding? And go ahead and begin our waterfall. You can hit enter, and waterfalls continue even after the initial, so keep them going. Oh, these are fantastic. Tara, I'd love to hear a little bit from you. You mentioned that it creates connections and helps to solidify concepts. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And if you do want to share out, we'd love to hear from you. Allison, who teaches our students with special needs in 3, 4, and 5, makes a connection to prior knowledge and to kind of visualize those skills that they're working on. Can you tell us a little bit more? How about Angela mentioning that they are giving students to build on their learning? Like, this is a major cornerstone of some of the information that we're presenting here. How do you see that happening?
So, I mean, with the understanding the rich tasks, well, first of all, with routines, it absolutely does, because they're able to have continuity in how we work in our classroom. But the rich tasks and games are fun, but it gives them an opportunity to practice what they learn, making connections with what they have, and then laying foundation, but also scaffolding their next opportunity to learn, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And that's a major point here. Carol, hi there. You mentioned kind of the usefulness to teachers, that it helps teachers to make sound decisions about the next steps. How do you see that?
Just the idea that formative assessment and observation are crucial to knowing what to do next with kids and what the next steps could be. Just really using that to drive your instruction. And I feel like with these resources and everything that you have to offer, it makes it very easy to figure things out.
Yes, absolutely. And Karen, who teaches 5th grade, mentions these are great for differentiation. We looked at Ava and Blake as just 2 students. How do you see this for differentiation with your whole class?
Well, first of all, you don't have to try to think of what you're going to do for your differentiation. It's given to you right there. So that in itself is a huge help. And then children might do different tasks at different times, based on what their ability is at that time. So it gives the children that need that extra time to build that time, while you already have something built in for students that need to take it further at a different level.
Absolutely. So folks, this is a great opportunity for differentiation, to be thinking about students and the work that they know and their background knowledge through a strengths-based lens, and then providing you a great resources for a routine-rich tasking game. Jen, I'm going to send it back over to you now, talking about feedback.
Sure. And I just wanted to piggyback on that comment on differentiation. And I think I just want to share some use cases from our teacher designers. So we met last week, and a lot of them are already thinking that, even though they teach 7th grade, that they're going to actually pull from the modules in 6th grade and 8th grade, depending on what they need for their different groups. So, I know that we have it by grade bands or grade levels, but if you just, really kind of capitalize on this idea of a learning trajectory, I think that's why the vertical articulation that VDOE has done for many of the concepts is so important, because if you were to just look at the learning trajectory as a conceptual development, really you can pull from any of those modules that are above, the grade level that you teach, and then the next grade levels, or the previous grade level. So we just want you to kind of think in that way. And I think a lot of the coaches here do that anyways, but I think as classroom teachers, that's a great resource for you to just go beyond maybe just the grade that you teach. So we're just really excited to have you here, because this project is really a co-design project with teachers. And, we're really tapping into the geniuses that we have in the Virginia region. And so when the VDOE team came to us, we really wanted to invite a lot of teachers, and you'll maybe even recognize some of the people. If you click on About, you'll see our teacher designers, but we invite you also as our teacher designers and researchers. If you do try some of these modules, and we're already hearing that some of you are, we'd love to hear from you. And we have this feedback link, not only to just kind of give us some critique and some suggestions if there's some other great tools or resources that you think that teachers would appreciate, but also, it's so powerful to see student work. And I think this exercise maybe also helped you appreciate that again with your colleagues, just talking about the strength. We invite you to submit any student work that you want to showcase, and it could be blind, but I think it'd be really great to have some of these modules tested in classrooms. And if you have some formative assessment student work, or you've tried an activity and you saw some awesome work that you want to highlight, please feel free to just attach that, and we'd love to showcase that. We're envisioning a way to even celebrate our student thinking through gallery of student work. And so that's kind of where some of our work is also headed. So feel free to send us feedback. If you decide to do some PD, and we've already seen a lot of wonderful ambassadors sharing this work, please reach out. And if there's any slides that you want to use, we're very happy to have you do that. And so we left all the slides for every grade level, just in case you wanted to use that in your PD or PLC or in the work that you're doing at your district. We want to thank you for being here, and VDOE has a few announcements. So we're going to hand it over to them, but please reach out to me, Jen Suh, and Teresa Wills at George Mason, and our emails are on the very last slide. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Thank you, Teresa. And thank you all for being here tonight. We actually heard from a group of folks that are carpooling back in Northern Virginia on a crazy I-95 and are listening. So thank you for your dedication, all of you, for taking time out of your evening to join us. We really do appreciate it. We did want to just give you information about some upcoming webinars in our series that we've been putting on this fall through the VDOE. We have a Using Small Group Instruction to Address Unfinished Learning webinar that will be held next week. We have 2 offerings, an elementary and a secondary. Those actually repeat. So if you were to go to the secondary session on Monday, it would be the same session on Thursday. So, but we'd love to have you there. We have presenters, Vicki Bodar and Catherine Munson will be working on the elementary session, and Skip Tyler and Michelle Giglio will be working on the secondary session. So please join us. Those links will get you to the registration, and I think that Kristen's also put the teacher direct link in the chat, so you can click on that as well to register. We also are offering a Structuring Effective Mathematics Intervention webinar with John Almerode and Kateri Thunder, 2 kind of powerhouses from Virginia. So you might not want to miss this one. Those will be held later this month, and they will repeat just as the other ones will for the different sessions. So please feel free to join us. We'd love to have you. We hope these are helpful to you, and we wish you well as you move forward in the school year. Thank you for all that you do. I think that's it, unless anybody else has anything to add. All right, well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.